Hello, everybody, and welcome to Our Life Beginnings and Noise. Here we are. We did the drive moment before, and now we're going to do, and then the summer ended because we don't have the DLCs out for this yet. Hopefully, when we get, they're supposed to be out this month, from what I've heard, but it's pretty much wait and see. I haven't seen anything yet on it yet, and I get emails from them. So, but anyway, after we're done with this, we're going back to doing the DLCs for Step 1 because we didn't get to do them before because we didn't have it at that time. I had to go through Steam because the other server would not load very well with the DLCs, so I had to get through Steam. So let's get started on this moment. Alright, there we go. Oh, excuse me. Balls bound. Excuse me. Balls bounced against your window, attracted by the light of your room. A siren call in the slowly darkening sky. Just as the day was coming to an end, so too would summer. Liz would be moving back into the dorms before long. Luckily, Lee had been able to come stay for a short trip before her own new journey began. She had officially been accepted to her first choice college a few weeks ago. This was her last chance to see you all in person for you flicked through the plans for the next few months, realizing that you didn't know when you'd next have the opportunity for everyone to be in the same place again. It was hard to think that you'd likely be seeing less of your cousin going forward, but you were delighted that she was pursuing her dreams. While you were still with each other, your family was going to have dinner together. As the Holdens were tagging along too. Your destination was the tropical place. You hadn't really discovered the tropical restaurant until you were a bit older, but everyone's enthusiasm had resulted in so many visits that you'd more than made up for the lost time. Liz and Lee were excited to squeeze in another trip before setting off again. Technically, you were getting ready to go out, though your mind was only half on the task. It was a pleasantly warm evening. the kind that optimized the vacation feeling, and you were in no mood to spoil it by rushing around. While idly gazing at your room, you spotted a small cluster of unopened envelopes that must have been left for you by a parent earlier. You headed over to the table to flick through everything of interest. As a child, any correspondence felt exciting due to its rarity. You recognize now that most of it was mundane, but you were checking any mail you got more regularly of late. There was something you were expecting. You stopped at a crisp white envelope. The logo proudly proclaimed the sender a school you'd applied to. Let's see. You took a deep breath and read it. This next step would take nerve. You closed your eyes as you breathed deep, the air slipping through your lips as you opened your eyes once more. You pulled apart the glued flap on the front of the envelope and extracted the letter. Your eyes darted over the message, rushing past the pleasantries to get to the heart of the matter. The blood pounding in your ears deafened you to the world outside that was contained within these letters. Your heart skidded to a halt as you read your verdict. You've been accepted. You were ecstatic. Bouncing on the balls of your feet, you pressed the letter to your chest as your excitement bubbled over. Of course, we're going to tell her, let's go with the letter. Yeah, we're going to do this. You wanted you and Cole to be the first to know. Obviously, because he's our boyfriend. Let's tell him before we tell anybody else. Why not? I mean, everybody else is going to find out later, obviously. Wasting no time, you pulled up his number on your phone and rang your boyfriend. You pressed your phone to your ear, waiting impatiently for the dull ringing to be replaced with Cole's voice. It took a few rings, but you were in luck. Cole picked up the call. "Hi, Chippy," says Cole. You blurted your news without the customary preamble of a greeting. "Cove, I got in. I'm going to college," I exclaimed.
Seriously?
"What?" asked Cove. You heard him gasp before continuing. Opening gushing over your good fortune. "That's amazing. It's incredible. You did it. Congratulations, Chippy," says Cove. There was another pause as you and Cove both marveled over the announcement. "No, seriously, this is really, really big. And you deserve it so much." I I know it'll be good for you, says Cove. Thanks. I just had to tell you right away. As soon as I knew, I exclaimed. You heard Cove chuckle softly over the phone. Thanks, I appreciate it, says Cove. You wanted to gush about the adventure lined up before you, a dream that you'd transformed into a plan, one that was soon to become your reality. But your hopes were temporarily dashed as Mom called up from downstairs.
Hey!
It's almost time to go, Chippy. You ready? Asked Mom. Oh, that's nice. You covered your phone with your free hand and turned away from the device, not wanting to deafen Cove. The yell was intended to reach another floor of your house, not an ear that was virtually inches away. Coming, I exclaimed. You brought your mouth back to the phone. I've got to go. I'll see you soon, I exclaimed.
I mean...
Yeah, there's something I want to tell you too, but we can do that later. We're about to have dinner together, says Cove. That plagued your curiosity, but you exchanged goodbyes and hung up. Sorry about the throat clearing and all that. Allergies. Hurriedly, you finished getting ready for the dinner, actually aware that time was against you. Despite that, you didn't regret the time you'd spent on the phone. It had all been worth it to speak to Cove. You'd make an announcement for everyone else at dinner. You tried your best to finish getting yourself ready for the dinner ahead. It was a strain. Your mind had only half been on the task before. Now, with the news fresh in your mind, it was a struggle to concentrate on anything else. You kept having to recall your thoughts away from the future and back to the present. Time was against you. Mom soon called from downstairs that it was time to go. You had to check the time, sure that you had 10 or at least 5 minutes left. You were wrong. You tore down the stairs, attempting to juggle your composure. Among the hurry and excitement, your moms, who turned to greet you as you arrived, swapped silent, knowing looks. They couldn't possibly have figured out what happened, or so you hoped. As your moms, they were pretty good at telling things without being told. You watched them, hunting for any further signs that they were on the case, but none came. For now, it didn't seem like they knew what was happening. Not exactly, at least. But things definitely happening. And even if they didn't know for sure what you're cooking up, they could smell something in the air. Everyone piled into the car while it was marketed as being suitable to hold 5 people in practice. It made for a very tight fit. Your moms sitting in the front were fine. You, Liz, and Lee were squashed into the back. Lee in the middle, wedged between you and your sister. But Mom was an excellent timekeeper. Thanks to her efforts, you pulled up near the restaurant on time. The progress of getting out of the car was slightly easier than squeezing into it, with much less coordination required to release seatbelts than to secure them. I think I want to turn the music down a little bit. It's a little too loud. There we go. That's better. Okay, I read this part. You gave Lee a hand as she climbed out of the middle seat, then headed into the building as a group. A waiter greeted you as you entered. Ma let him know how many of you would be in total, and he went to arrange a table that would meet your needs. He returned promptly to guide you to your seats. You perched comfortably in your chair, your head held aloft, as if buoyed by today's good fortune. Your family settled down around you, all cheerful and looking forward to the evening ahead. Your drinks order had been taken when the Holtons came through the door. Sorry about that. My throat still needs to get cleared. It's like I got something stuck in my throat or something. They were pointed in your direction, though with Mom waving an arm in the air, it was hardly necessary. Cove and Mr. Holden came to join you at the table. As greens were being exchanged, Cove took a seat opposite to you. It had been empty by unspoken acknowledgement that you and Cove would be waiting to sit together. Excuse me. Mr. Holden sat beside him.
Hi!
It's great to see you, says Lee. Glad you could make it, says Liz. Hello, everyone. You wouldn't believe how hungry I am, says Mr. Holden.
I see.
You came to the right place then, says Mom. There was some laughter, though Liz groaned playfully, shaking her head at Mom's sense of humor. Growing up, she'd have complained, and Mom would have responded by making another comment. Liz had mellowed over the years, but she still made a show of disappearing at Mom's disappearing at Mom's jokes. reaction to them had become a joke in its own right. Menus were soon passed around, and a temporary hush fell over the table as everyone read. It didn't last long, punctured by the comments about what people had eaten here before, and light chatter about what people were considering tonight. Once the waiter had disappeared with her orange clip piped up.
Okay.
So, I've got some good news. Kyra's making a trip out here tomorrow, says Mr. Holden. Cove nodded, turning from his father to the rest of the table. Yeah, we talked about it and figured this was a good time for everyone.
Very nice.
That's great, says Lee. Everyone reacted positively to the news, though Ma looked wistful.
That's a shame.
If only we'd known. Here we are having a big meal without her. If we'd waited one day, she could have joined us, says Mom. Mom patted Ma on the back, gently nudging her from the realm of possibilities and what-ifs, and back to the evening that was going so well. Chin up. Lee and Liz will still be here tomorrow. We'll just have to throw another get-together and keep the fun train chugging along, says Mom. Ma smiled warmly, taking Mom's hand in hers. That's true. There's plenty to celebrate right now, but there will be more good news and good times on the horizon, says Mom.
Right.
Right. And speaking of, that's not all we've got either, says Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden's eyes a lot as he sat up straight in his chair, face angled towards his son. He barely let a beat go by before nudging Cove with his elbow, pushing him to follow up on the announcement. He was a very picture of a proud papa. Cove shed from the limelight, ducking his head down and staring at his lap as he spoke.
Well,
it's just I've switched over to working full-time instead of part-time. Plus, I've been looking at apartments. There's a few I can choose from, says Cove. He flicked his gaze up at everyone around the table, a smile creeping over his face. I'll be pretty busy going forward, says Cove. Apartments he was moving. Cove was going to move out of his dad's house. After 10 years, he wasn't going to be your neighbor anymore. Well, that's okay. I mean, I've heard that in step 4 we actually get to move in with Cove at his place, so we got that to look forward to. Mr. Holden gripped one of Cove's shoulders and gave it a loving shake. His excitement couldn't be contained. Incredible. Cove's actually going to make it to adulthood. It's a miracle, says Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden leaned back in his chair, staring up at the ceiling in mock wonder.
I'm so glad.
I wasn't convinced I'd be able to rear a kid all the way to this point. But thankfully, I lucked out and got the best boy a dad could have asked for, Mr. Holden says. Dad, says Cove. Cove blinkered at his vision with his hands on the side of his face, temporarily blocking his father from some sight. Despite his genuine bashfulness, which left him unable to meet everyone else's eyes, after all the attention thrust his way, he was happy.
Thanks.
I was really lucky too. You're a good dad, says Cove.
Aw.
Come here, says Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden threw an arm around Cove's neck, pulling him into as close a hug as the seating allowed. He rubbed his cheek on top of his son's head while Cove chuckled, accepting the affection with good humor. You tapped on the glass with a fork, something that you'd seen done in movies when people wanted attention. It didn't make quite the same noise, possibly because your glass was a tumbler and not a champagne flute. But everyone looked in your direction. Anyway, I've got something to announce too, I exclaimed. Of course, says Mr. Holden.
Yeah.
Lay it on us, says Mom. I got my acceptance letter today. I'll be going to college soon, I exclaimed.
You're fantastic.
Nice, Chippy, says Mom.
Good job.
That's wonderful, sweetie, says Ma. Ma roped you into a hug. Her arms quicker than any lasso. You were thankful you sat next to her. If not, you didn't doubt that she would have divided over the table to reach you in her excitement. Hey, let me in on the hug, says Mom. Your mom's pins you in a hug, leaning from the chairs to squeeze you in tandem. Liz beamed at you from across the table. Good job, Chippy, says Liz. Lee didn't hide her excitement, clapping her hands in open delight.
Seriously?
That's amazing. You're gonna be amazing, says Lee. Mr. Holden gave you a thumbs up.
Good kid.
Impressive. You're a good kid. The world's your oyster, says Mr. Holden. Cove grinned at you from across the table. He was still very pleased for you despite this not being the first time he's heard about it. You looked around at the faces of the company here. You'd been on this journey with everyone here for years, seen them falter and grow, and they had watched you go through the same. Cove was leaving his family home. Liz was heading back to college, while Lee was starting at hers. You were staying close, but it was clear you were all heading in different directions, to different destinations. Some near, some far, but it wouldn't be long until you were all going on your own way. Let's see. Okay. Your heart swelled with pride for everyone. You held your head aloft as you looked forward. Literally and metaphorically, it was amazing how far you all had come. You were sure that you would face each day that came head on, knowing that you had people who cared about you backing you up, even if it was from a distance. You couldn't wait to see what happened. To see You couldn't wait to see what happened next. Oh, says Cove. Cove brought some attention to himself with a clearing of his throat and a small interjection. I'm going to stretch my legs while we're waiting for the food and everything, says Cove.
Sure.
Sure thing, bud, says Mr. Holmes. With a tiny smile, he nodded at his dad, but the likeness to his expression faded when he moved to face you. Want to come? Cove asked. Of course. He was attempting to be subtle, but there was very obviously something on his mind, something he wanted to talk to you about alone. You watched him with concern as you rose from your seat. Yeah, I'll go, I exclaimed. Take care, says Mom. With those parting words, the two of you walked about the place. He was trying to get as far away from everyone as possible without actually exiting the building. What did you need to say? I asked. He hadn't admitted that was what this was about, but he didn't need to. Cove started pulling on the hem of his shirt. He turned his head back to face you, but it was an awkward movement. Well, I wanted to talk to you one-on-one about this. You know, my work and movie, says Cove. That's what I meant when we talked before dinner, says Cove. I mean, it was coming before, but no, it's pretty much here, says Cove. Yeah, it's exciting, I exclaimed. Cove stopped picking at his shirt, and he seemed to respond well to that response. He was relieved you weren't upset about it. I'm glad you think so, says Cove. But then he looked down and his brows furrowed. You saw his hand shift away from his clothes to instead rub at his arms. Are you looking forward to it? I asked. I am, says Cove.
I mean...
Well, I'm trying to be, says Cove. He ducked his head further and you saw his face start to redden. But it's scary. I don't want things to end, says Cove. Come on, you don't need to worry, I exclaimed. It may be scary now, but it'll be worth it. I sure hope so, says Cove. Cove then turned his head away and wrapped his arms around himself. You felt a sudden chill that definitely wasn't caused by the air conditioner. I was just thinking, says Cove. Are we really gonna stay a couple? Cove asked. His words came hesitantly. He didn't want to ask this. He didn't want a no.
That's...
I'm not just talking about today, but forever, always. Even if things change later. Do you feel we can make it? Asked Cove. Or do you think we can't last? That one day we'll have to move on, asked Cove. You kept calm. You understood his concern. It was definitely hard to imagine what would happen. However, you didn't let yourself get upset. I'm yours as long as you want me, I exclaimed. You looked at Cove, who seemed utterly touched. You had a feeling that he couldn't imagine not wanting you. Cove laughed with a delight smile on his face. Okay, you win. I wanted to prepare myself for the horrifying unknown, but you're kind of giving me no choice but to be optimistic here, says Cove. His eyes sparkled with mischief. Strong armor, says Cove. Oh no, I can't believe you're being forced to have hope about life, I exclaimed, jokingly. His lips twitched up at your sarcasm.
Right?
I know. How am I going to get past this? Asked Cove. He gave us a small smile and then stopped joking around. Thanks for listening to me, Chippy. It helped. Of course. You felt pleased that his anxiety had eased after talking it out. I think it's time to rejoin the party. Do you feel like heading back? I asked.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot what we were doing here. That'll probably be good, says Cove. With matching smiles, you both reclaimed your seats at the table. Both of you felt lighter, and it showed.
Mm-hmm.
You seem happy. What was that? Says Liz. Yeah, it looked like you were having quite the conversation over there, says Lee. It's neighbor stuff. Sorry, says Cove. I used to be your neighbor, says Liz. And you used to be a pain in that behind, too. Used to tease them a lot. He waved off their questions, and you didn't offer any explanations. They seemed curious, but caught that Cove wanted to stay between the two of you and let it drop. Things relaxed and you took a sip of your drink. Lee utterly tapped the table and got your attention. I'm so excited to try this place, says Lee. Mm-hmm, says Liz. I'm not sure if I've ever really eaten here. It's more Chippy's place than mine. Let's hope it's good, says Liz. All the restaurants in the area are pretty top-notch, in my humble opinion, says Mr. Holmes. We'll see, says Liz. It was a challenge issued. Liz carried herself like some sort of professional food critic, and Mom snorted. Tough crowd, geez, Liz, says Mom. Ma giggled and chimed in as well, much to Liz's embarrassment. That's right, Liz. Cheese, says Mom. Oh, geez Louise, said Lee. Hey, be nice to Liz. She's trying to be nice, so give her a break. She doesn't even say it that much, I exclaimed. Much anymore, I exclaimed. Everyone burst out laughing besides Liz, of course. She smirked. No one could ever accuse your family of being no fun. Night fell soon after everyone finished their meals, and before you knew it, you were standing in the parking lot, saying your goodbyes and packing up to go home. After the last of your chores were done, your family spent some more time together. The rest of the night felt like it was going to be in a blink of an eye, and somehow the time came to retire to your room to sleep. You pulled your covers up under your chin and settled down for the night, getting warm and cozy. As your head sunk into your pillow and you closed your eyes, your mind drifted back to everything that had happened that day. You could see it all now behind your eyelids, as though you were experiencing it all over again. And then the image of Cove popped into your head, and you smiled softly to yourself. You wanted to sneak out into his room. I mean, he's done it with us before, so why not? I think it's our turn to be sneaky. If Cole could do it, then you didn't see why you wouldn't be allowed to. You made up your mind. As quietly as you could manage, you put on your shoes and slipped out of your room, closing the door behind you softly. Heading slowly down, you took care not to make the floor creak, especially the boards right by the bathroom. Those definitely squeaked. The stillness of the night made even slightest sound seemed so much louder to your ears, and you were very aware of your mom sleeping nearby. Upon reaching the bottom, you tiptoed towards the front door. Stepping out into the crisp night air, you shut the door and took a relieving breath. Excitement raising, you dashed across the street towards Cove's house. The road to was surreal, at this hour. Familiar yet strange, it might have been eerie at another time, but with how eager you were, you hardly cared. You attempted to find your way from the normal footpath to the side of the condo, but the limited light was making it difficult. You know for sure which window was Co's, and luckily for you, it was on the first floor. Unlike Cove, you wouldn't have to do any building scaling. All you need to do now was make it safely over the fence and past the bushes without being caught or injured. Sneaking closer, you glanced over the hedges towards Co's bedroom window, finding it cracked open. Perfect. You couldn't have to knock and worry about him not answering. Hoisting yourself up with ease, you cleared the fence and avoided the shrubs, then darted over to the window. You buzzed with a nervous excitement as you approached it in the dark, having successfully made it all the way here unseen. Lifting the window up, lifting the window up so it was fully open, you pushed yourself halfway through your legs dangling into the underbush below. It was a little awkward as a small shelf was right in the way. You had to take care not to knock over a couple of plants, but you made it through with minimal noise. Once safely inside, you dusted yourself off and turned back to close the window gently, with only the soft glow of moonlight and Cove's fish tank there to see the way. You gave a small wave to your favorite fishes, the one you named and the one you had given Cove as a gift. Both looked to be doing good. Then, straining your eyes through the dark, you crept towards Cove's bed, barely making out a sleeping figure beneath the covers. By the sound of his self-breathing, you could tell that he hadn't heard you come in, and a small smile tucked at your lips. You whispered his name. Cove, I asked. You figured he must be in a deep sleep as he continued snoozing away. Positioning your lips beside his ear, you tried again. Cove, wake up, I exclaimed. This time he sleepily blinked his eyes and mumbled something incoherent beneath his breath. Hey, I wanted to come over. Is that alright? I asked. He let out a yawn and rolled towards you, waking up just enough to understand the question, but not the full context. A faint smile appeared on his face. What? Yeah. I want you here, says Cove. He reached for you, his arms wrapping around your neck as he pulled you towards him. When your foreheads touched, he gave a satisfied sigh. Then, as if he was totally unaware of what he had done, he started dozing off again. You snickered quietly to yourself as you sat there. He could figure it out on his own, and after a few more seconds, he did. Wait, Chippy? Cove asked. Yes. Do you need something? I asked. He shuffled under the covers and sat up to stare at you in alarm.
What?
Why are you here in my room? What happened? Asked Cove. A smile slipped onto your face as he finally registered your presence for real. You pulled him in for a kiss. Clutching the front of his shirt, you gently pulled him towards you and met his lips with your own. He kissed you back softly before pulling back too quickly, looking a little flustered. Was that the whole reason? Cove asked. He hesitated before whispering the next part embarrassing. To kiss me? Cove asked. It's not the only reason, I exclaimed. He gave a small sigh, but it held a great deal of affection. I should have known you'd do this one of these days. It's only fair, says Cove. Of course. You've done it, so might as well. You let out a breath, feeling relieved that he didn't seem bothered by it. In fact, it felt kind of good. He thought maybe his enthusiasm was why Cove did it so often. He pushed himself up fully, swinging his legs over the side of the bed and leaving a spot for you beside him. His hands shook where he held them in his lap. He was nervous. You sat beside him happily, waiting for him to speak first. You can stay as long as you want, says Cove. Really? I ask. Yeah, really, says Cove. Can I stay the whole night? I ask.
Of course.
Says Cove. He smiled, feeling relieved that he had agreed, and grinned back. You could always count on him. I've secretly slept over in your room before. It's fair you get to do this too, says Cove. You snickered, feeling pleased with your decision to do this. Okay, but there's no way I'm letting you take the floor this time, I exclaimed. Here we go again, says Cove. You rolled your eyes and let out a soft laugh, which Cove returned as he rubbed at the back of his neck. Let's see. I'm gonna go with the second one. We should share the bed, of course.
I mean,
Yeah, I guess we could do that. Nothing is stopping us, says Cove. Holding back your amusement, you try not to grin at his bashfulness. He obviously hadn't thought it through completely, but at least he was up for it. We were going to share the bed, says Cove. You could hear the tremble in Cove's voice as he held his hands together to keep them from shaking. Actually, maybe not, asked Cove. Your eyebrows rose at how quickly he changed his mind, but when you saw he was serious, you let out a sigh. I'm sorry, I'll do it. I can do it. I want to do it, says Cove. I just need a second, says Cove. You were glad he was making the effort. It was important. It was an important step in your relationship, and he had seemed to understand that. It only took a couple of moments longer before he turned to you, attempting a weak smile. Ready? asked Cove. I'm definitely ready. Let's get cozy, I exclaimed. He took another deep breath, and you slipped under the covers, making room for him to get in after you. Laying as straight as a steel rod, Cove tensed up beside you, so he was barely breathing at all. You rested. You rested on your side and faced him, your eyebrows pinched in the middle as you watched him. He looked back at you deeply.
I...
Chippy, says Cove. All of a sudden, he started trembling and shaking more than ever. Then he scrambled out of the bed. You bolted upright, leaning back on your hands as you stared at him in shock. Are you alright? I asked. Yeah, I'll be back. I just need some more time, says Cove. He ran a hand through his hair in exasperation and paced around the room, breathing heavily. You were worried for him, but completely at a loss for what to do. As though he could read your mind, he spoke again.
Don't worry about it.
It's fine. Don't worry, says Cove. He assured you between heavy, gasping breaths, but you were having trouble believing him. And he bent over with his hands on his knees, like he just run a marathon. You were even more concerned. This isn't a problem, just a process, says Cove. He held a hand to reassure you. With nothing left to do, you sink back down into the bed and let him have the space he obviously needed. Okay, take all the time you need, I exclaimed. And it did take some time for him to finish working out his nervous energy and study his breathing to an even rhythm. But eventually he collected himself enough to relax. You tentatively glanced over at him, watching as he let out one last deep sigh before turning back to you. Can I come back still? Says Cove. Get in here, I exclaimed. You chuckled and softly shuffled over to make space for him. Cuddle time, snuggle cuddle time. He immediately perked up as he slipped back into bed beside you, though it was still careful not to get too close. Thank you for waiting again, as always, says Cove. He laughed shyly at his eyes meeting yours through the dim light.
Are you okay?
Asked Cove. I'll always wait for you, I exclaimed. Always wait for you, Cove, I exclaimed. He squeezed your arm a little tighter, his lips curving into a smile as he looked at you in awe. He shuffled closer, inch at a time, and nuzzled his chin against the top of your head, wrapping his arms around your sides. You wrapped your arms around him. Your fingers gently brushed up and down his back as you held him close. The room grew quiet around you. The only sounds to be heard were the faraway crash of the ocean waves and your breath lingering in the small space between you. Cove's heart was pounding, the thump of it rumbling through you as he spoke again softly.
That's...
You know I'm not scared of you, right? It's just so many other things that scare me, says Cove. I'm afraid of what if hypotheticals that aren't actually real, but I think about anyway, and of nebulous concepts of what things mean that I can barely explain even to myself, says Cove. I'm scared of my own feelings and how much I feel them, says Cove. I'm afraid because tomorrow things will be different between us, but I'll be alone again. He held onto you tighter, his breath stuttering ever so slightly. It's normal, right? Now to see you during the day and part ways at night, says Cove. Except for special exceptions, says Cove. A little laugh escaped him before his tone became serious once more. It's easier to stay where I am than it is to make myself move, to not take a risk and to not know what I might be missing, but he hesitated and reached up to brush a few strands of his hair from his face gently, his eyes slowly fixing on yours. When did doing the easy thing get so hard? When it comes to you, I don't know how to stay still. I want to keep trying to taking steps forward, says Cove. Oh, excuse me. Honestly, when I see your face, or even imagine it, I want to start sprinting, says Cove. But when I try, I hit a wall. It's just like I physically can't do it on one side of my mind. There's something blocking me. And then the other side, I absolutely can't stop myself from doing it. It never ends well, says Cove.
I'm always like this.
I hate it. It's the most frustrating thing. Why do I do it every time? I'm annoyed with the way I am, so I have no idea how you stand it, says Cove. I'm sorry I act so split when it comes to romantic things. I do not want you to think you're rushing me when I know I'm giving mixed signals, says Cove. And I don't want to miss out on being happy by being like this, but sometimes I still can't help it. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm glad you're never giving up on me. It means a lot. It means everything to me, says Cove. I'm gonna go with the second one. You've been there whenever I've really needed it. I exclaimed. His eyes glossed over a little as he squeezed you closer to him and smiled, his heart rate finally relaxing to a normal rhythm.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, Chippy, says Cove. Good night, I exclaimed. He leaned forward and kissed you tenderly. His lips, his hand gently moving to cradle the back of your head.
I love you. I love you,
says Cove. I love you too, I exclaimed. You were still smiling as you snuggled into him, getting as close as you could. Cocooned in his warmth, you easily grew comfortable next to him, feeling him ease into you as well. Before long, your eyes were growing heavy, and you drifted off into restful sleep side by side. The next morning, you woke slowly from a comfortable dream. With a small stretch, you opened your eyes fully to the sun shining through the window. Shuffling onto your side, you noticed Cove still beside you in the bed, sleeping soundly. His arms continued to be draped around you loosely as he snoozed. You must have fallen asleep like that way. You smiled, remembering the prior night. It had been nice to spend the night together, getting to be with him in a whole different way. You could definitely get used to it. You kissed his forehead softly. Being careful not to wake him, you bent over and pressed your lips against his skin. He stared a little in response. He stirred a little bit in response. A small, sleepy smile appearing in his face. Then a loud noise suddenly startled you, and you snapped towards the source of the sound. It was the door opening abruptly. In the frame stood Mr. Holmes, smiling brightly. He had seemed to have noticed you straight away. "Get your butt out of bed, sport. Mom's here," says Mr. Holmes. "Oh," says Mr. Holmes. All of a sudden, the two of you made eye contact, and he froze where he stood. A smile slowly slipping from his face. That's not what I usually walk into. I clearly should have knocked this morning," says Mr. Holmes. "Do you think?" Your mouth wordlessly fell open. Wait a minute. Okay. Alright. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the third one. Of course, Cove would get away with sneaking into my room. And I'm the one who gets caught? I exclaimed. Should I pretend I didn't hear that? Says Mr. Holmes. Asked Mr. Holmes. Cove blinked his eyes tardily and mumbled something incoherent before turning towards the door. Both you and Mr. Holmes stared at him for a few moments, neither knowing what to say or do. Cove, who continued looking at his dad closely, was obviously having a hard time trying to process the situation. Then his eyes widened. "Dad?" asked Cove. Cove scrambled on the bed in an attempt to get his feet. Pushing the covers back off the both of you. Excuse me. Forgetting there was an overhanging ceiling above him, he shot upwards and hit his head on the wood. "Oh no, again?" Just like in the RV trip, right? "Ow," says Cove. He flopped back down on his pillow, pressing a hand to his head and groaning loudly. "Cove," I exclaimed, checking on him. You reached out towards him instinctively. It was the second time that sharing a space with him had resulted in him hitting his head. You felt really bad for him. Poor Cove. Cove, bud, are you alright over there? Asked Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes stepped further into the room, his eyebrows furrowed in concern. And then he bent down towards his son.
Yes!
Yes!
Please just go, says Cove. Okay, I'll leave, says Mr. Holmes. Cliff held his hands in front of him in calming gesture, even though Cove couldn't see it. He turned to make his exit, but stopped abruptly in the doorway, obviously deciding he had something more to say. I know we've talked about this before, but I feel like now is one of those times to mention that I was barely older than you when I found out I was going to be a daddy, so just if there's anything you need to say or ask about, says Mr. Holmes. We're not having kids, says Cove. I know, I was only saying, at that age things can move fast, and he let out a heavy sigh, running a hand over his face before stopping himself and saying calmly, you know what, it's fine. We'll chat about this later, says Mr. Holmes. Cars are waiting, says Mr. Holmes. With that, he stepped back out of the room, giving the two of you one last look before pulling the door shut behind him. Cove rubbed his face before dropping his head into his hands and mumbling between his fingers.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh my god, oh my god, says Cove. He patted him on the leg. It's alright, things like this happen, he exclaimed. With a heavy sigh, Cove forced himself to sit up again. He frowned hard, staring over at the closed door. Sorry, says Cove. What my dad said, that was really, really dumb. It wasn't something he should have brought up, says Cove. You knew which comment Cove meant. The one about how Mr. Holmes had gotten Cara pregnant. My mistake. That wasn't something that would happen with you and Cove being together. I think he was just trying to show how serious spending the night is in general. He wasn't trying to compare us to him with him, Cove says. You appreciated Cove's words. It really was dumb, I said. Yeah, incredibly, amazingly, ridiculously, says Cove. Thanks, I exclaimed. You both simultaneously released a deep breath. I guess we can't just hide in here now, says Cove. He gave you a sidelong glance, and despite his displeasure at the situation, a small smile quirked his lips.
It's nice. It's nice.
It's too bad it had been really nice, says Cove. I wish we could stay here all day, I exclaimed. You found yourself smiling along with him. The two of you took a few minutes to get up properly and get yourself as ready as possible before heading out to see Kara. Kara was waiting patiently in the living room. She was in high spirits with her eyes set on the hallway. Her amused smile only widened when you and Cove froze. It didn't take long for the realization to sink in that the scene must have been loud enough for her to hear even from there. Cove tried to look unimpressed, his eyes narrowing over Kara's smug delight, though his face was already turning red and his mouth hadn't even said anything yet. He squared his shoulders, lifted his head, and strode forward.
Hey. Hey.
Hi, Mom, says Cove. Hi, baby. And hello to you too, Chippy, says Kara. Her tone chuckled in her greeting, and then she gave in and laughed, unable to keep any of it in. Cove frowned at that, and his eyebrows furrowed. Sorry for the interruption. I didn't know you already had guests, says Kara. His frown wobbled as he became even more embarrassed by this moment. He couldn't muster up any words to defend himself. Okay, I'm gonna go with the first one. Well, it's not like anyone's surprised by this, I exclaimed. Kara laughed even harder this time, as it showed. She brought a hand up to cover her mouth, but both of you could still see her shoulders shake. Cole still looked mortified, but he shot you a stern look. All you could do was smile. Excuse me. Cole was still unable to say anything other than his teeth biting into the side of his cheek. He stood there frozen. Kara studied you both for a moment.
It's alright. It's alright.
It's okay. My not so little mister is spreading his wings. I can't complain about that, says Kara. She slightly tapped the tip of her nose. That got a tiny smile out of Cove. Despite being much taller than Kara at this point, he still seemed like a little kid in front of her. You released the air you were holding in your lungs, And then Kara's gaze locked onto you. You know, we were just about to go over to see Pam and Noel. Are you two coming? Kara asked. Sure. I should definitely go back there, I exclaimed. Cove chuckled at your phrasing. He stretched his arms for a moment and yawned, trying to physically shake off what happened.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good, says Cove.
Great.
Great.
Let's do it, says Mr. Holden. It was then that you noticed Mr. Holden's standing on the other side of the room. You figured he must have been trying to create some space for everyone during the last conversation. You could tell he felt a bit awkward, but he tried smiling reassuringly as he stretched the back of his neck. His attention went to Cove. But do you want to get changed first? Asked Mr. Holden. Cove looked down at his pajamas for a moment. He shook his head. No, we don't have to wait for that, says Cove. Are you sure? It's only a trip across the street, says Mr. Holden.
Don't worry
about it.
I'm alright. Besides, Chippy is going in his pajamas too, says Cove. Fair point, Mr. Holden, says Mr. Holden. Cove then leaned in closer to you. He grumbled quietly. And your moms are going to figure out what happened anyway, so... Yeah, I exclaimed.
Come on!
Anyway, we go. Away we go, says Kara. And I'm going to stop it there because I want to check on the video. I want to make sure everything's worked out here. So, don't worry, I'm going to finish the rest of it in a while today. So, don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And thanks for watching again on my YouTube channel.